Monday's lesson, first paragraph, says, when Peter says, if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you are blessed, he is echoing the words of Jesus, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. He then says that Christians should not fear those who are attacking them, but they should sanctify, revere Christ as the Lord in their hearts. So question, why should Christians not fear those who are attacking them? And I really thought about this week, and I came up so far with 3 elements that overcome fear for us. 3 elements overcome fear. Now, you all know the first one.
Trust.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Love. Perfect love casts out all fear. Perfect love casts out all fear. Neurobiologically, I think you've seen my lectures that when your love circuits fire in your brain, they actually turn off your fear circuit, your amygdala. When your anterior cortex is active, it shuts down amygdala. And perfect love, neurobiologically, casts out fear. And if you think in your own life in a moment, when you had a moment where you really loved another person more than yourself, you really cared so much about them, or you were in a moment where you really felt somebody loved you that much, either way, when you feel that love going on, what's happening to your fear? It's going down. Neurobiologically, we can see that happening. Do we see evidence of this in the death of Stephen? Of course we see in Jesus' life, but everybody says, well, he's the Son of God, he's perfect. But let's look at others, sinners. Stephen, do we see the evidence of love overcoming? Do we see in Paul's life? Prior to Damascus Road, he's willing to kill others and imprison. After Damascus Road, I would gladly give my life that my fellow Jews might be saved. Did something change there? Yeah. And then share you a story about Christian de Serge, a French Catholic monk and Trappist prior of the Tibrine Monastery in Algeria. In 1993, with the rise of radical Islam, Father Serge knew that his life was in danger, but rather than leave Algeria, he chose to stay and continue his witness of the love of Jesus Christ. On May 24, 1996, he was beheaded by Muslim radicals. Anticipating his death, Father Serge had left a testament with his family to be read in the event of his murder. And here is part of that testimony. If it should happen one day, and it could be today, that I become a victim of the terrorism which now seems ready to encompass all the foreigners living in Algeria, I would like my community, my church, my family, to remember that my life was given to God and to this country. I ask them to accept that the one master of all life was not a stranger to this brutal departure. I ask them to pray for me, for how could I be found worthy of such an offering? I ask them to be able to associate such a death with the many other deaths that were just as violent but forgotten through indifference and anonymity. I should like, when the time comes, to have a clear space which would allow me to beg forgiveness of God and all my fellow human beings, and at the same time to forgive with all my heart the one who would strike me down. My death clearly will appear to justify those who hastily judged me as naive or idealistic. Let him tell us now what he thinks of it. But these people must realize that my most avid curiosity will then be satisfied. This is what I shall be able to do if God wills. Immerse my gaze in that of the Father, to contemplate with him his children of Islam, just as he sees them all shining with the glory of Christ, the fruit of his passion, filled with the gift of his Spirit, whose secret joy will always be to establish communion and to refashion the likeness, delighting in the differences. For this life given up, totally mine and totally theirs, I thank God, and you also, the friend of my final moment, who would not be aware of what you were doing. Yes, for you also I wish this thank you and this adieu, to commend you to the God whose face I see in yours. And may we find each other happy, good thieves in paradise, if it pleases God, the Father of us both. Amen. Isn't that profound? How could he write that? Was that inspired by the human carnal nature? Did you hear love in that? Where does that kind of love originate? Where does it come from? Well, he can't have it because he's Catholic. He can't have that love. It's not allowed. Is that love restricted to denominations? No. Not at all. And this love is not natural. That's supernatural love. That's the love of Christ working in the heart. So, 1, love casts out fear. 2, what else? Truth. Truth. First and foremost, the truth about God that leads to trust. He said trust. But trust is based on a knowledge of the trustworthiness of the one you trust. So the truth about God, do you know him well enough personally that you trust him with your wealth, with your life, with your family, with your future? Do we believe that God really has our best interest at heart? Or do we, like many of my patients that come in to see me, say things like this: why did God take my child in a car accident? Why did God give my child cancer? Why did God prevent didn't God prevent my husband from cheating on me? Why did God give me bipolar disorder? I have many patients that say this. If you believe that about God, can you trust him? No. You cannot trust a God who will kill your children, or give you cancer, or give you mental illness.
Or kill you if you don't love him.
Or kill you if you don't love him. What kind of emotions do those ideas generate in a person? Fear. And what is fear? How does fear cause us to behave and act? Selfishly. Why do you think Satan infects Christianity with these ideas about God, that God is the source of inflicted pain and suffering? Here's another truth. What does this mean? Jesus said, Matthew 10:28, don't be afraid of the one who can kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. What does that mean? Is there a truth there? Our individualities. No other people, including demon, fallen angels, Satan, Lucifer, human beings, they can harm your body. You can be physically violated. You can be murdered. You can be beaten. You can be raped. You can be crucified. You can be hurt physically. But no other person can damage your soul, your psyche, which is the Greek word for soul, your individuality, your character, your identity. No other person can damage that. Only you can damage that. Only you. And if you want to see the difference, what's the difference between being assaulted by somebody and you assaulting somebody? Being raped and you going out and raping people. There's a big difference what happens, isn't there? Big difference. One, you may be damaged physically and psychologically and emotionally, but your conscience is clear. You've done no wrong. But when you do that to someone else, there's a corruption in the core self that takes hold. And the third element that protects against fear. So, element, love, truth, and the third, purpose. Having a purpose. If we know that our suffering is going to serve a greater cause, it often allows endurance and toleration of the suffering and the sacrifice. You read what I read earlier in the Desire of Ages quote in Gethsemane when the angel came down to encourage Christ. If you go back and read that, you'll see that what this author suggests the angel said to Christ was reminding Christ of all the things that his death was going to accomplish. Well, the Hebrews author said the same thing. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross. For the joy. What joy? What it would accomplish. The saving. He had a purpose in that. It wasn't purposeless suffering. I have some stories, but I'm not going to go into them now because we're really running short on time and I want to get to something else unless I'm going to skip to Wednesday.